Well, that sure escalated quickly, didn't it? Wow. I stand corrected. I've never seen Vladimir Putin so livid and perturbed than he was when he was being briefed by Valery Gerasimov today, one of his top generals in the Southern Military District that oversees the Kursk region. I've never seen him so irate and getting ready to jump out of his seat than when his top general told him that everything is fine in Kursk. It's just that Ukraine happens to be invading our country and they've established a 300 square kilometer salient. Now, you'd think that this would be headline Western news, that you have a NATO-backed force invading the world's largest nuclear superpower. You think that that would be on the front page of every single media organization. That the president of country with most nuclear weapons in the world is very angry that his country is being invaded by a force that is being backstopped by NATO fighter jets that are nuclear capable. But no, you would be mistaken, because this is idiocracy. We've been so desensitized by these past Pyrrhic and propagandistic exercises in futility, as were put on display by the neo-Nazi adjacent partisan groups that attempted this in the past with small platoons of troops. So I mistakenly yesterday wrote this off as a nothing burger in my video. If you recall, I said that this is nothing to worry about, will be easily quelled in 24 hours. Well, I stand corrected. This was the real deal. They really are trying to start a nuclear war, it would appear. And I can't understand for the life of me. Well, I mean, I can understand because we've been systematically desensitized to the severity of the situation. And from the Russian point of view, what you have happening here is it's no coincidence that just 2 days after the official announcement that the F-16s have entered the fray, that all of a sudden you have an invasion of Russia, okay? Now, on the topic of F-16s, what a lot of military analysts get wrong is that they're taking everything that either side says at their word, when really at this point in time you need to start making inferences. Because everything that they say 6 months later turns out to be not true on either side. In the case of an F-16, if Ukraine even got one F-16 officially and had one Ukrainian pilot certified to put on display really for the Russians, you could potentially have a limitless amount of F-16s flying at low altitude over the Romanian-Polish border, flying sorties 24/7. If the Russians catch you, oh, it's just one of those F-16s NATO said they were giving Ukraine. Just one of. But what happens if there are dozens of F-16s that are currently stationed just outside the country, running sorties non-stop, in addition to the dozens of drones that are being fired into Russia every single day? I believe that Vladimir Putin is approaching the end of his rope. I think that either this was some 4D chess move, as some have speculated, to give the Ukrainians just enough rope to hang themselves with to justify another round of mobilization and a full-on declaration of war against Ukraine. That could be what this is. That very well could be what this is. But I don't think that the nonverbals exhibited by Vladimir Putin could be so perfectly faked, because that's what would have to have happened. These seemed like sincere reactions. It seemed as though the Russians were caught off guard with this completely. Now, as it stands, 2 brigades partaking, one of them is mechanized, and these brigades are currently partaking in this incursion into Russian territory, and they're backstopped by another 3 brigades in the Sumy region, which I am told can enter into the conflict zone at a moment's notice. Now, the Chechens within this region are scrambling. In fact, there's been a state of emergency declared in the Kursk region because, of course, just down the street, about 60 kilometers, which is still a long way away from where the Ukrainians are, and I highly doubt they'll be able to acquire the Kursk nuclear power plant. But if they did, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something for the Ukrainians? Now, they've allegedly been able to take control of a gas hub there that sends gas through Russia and through Ukraine, in fact, into Europe. The goal is to, of course, control the gas entirely, right? So Russia has the ability to control the gas that flows through Ukraine, which tells you that this really isn't a full-on war yet because those pipelines would have been destroyed a long time ago. Now, we do know that the arrangement to transit gas through Ukraine expires this year, assuming there is no peace deal negotiated. But at this point in time, we can surmise that it's very unlikely that that's ever going to happen if we didn't already. Because, of course, all of this talk about peace negotiations has been thrown into the fan once again, because now you have an invasion of Russia, and Vladimir Putin is absolutely irate. So the disdain that he exhibited for his top general, Valery Gerasimov, within that region tells me that Gerasimov is going to be falling out of a window very soon. And all of a sudden, you have the rekindling of nuclear talk on the front. Remember, as we speak, the tactical nuclear exercises, the third stage, is still underway. So people are starting to doubt Vladimir Putin and his red lines. People are starting to doubt the resoluteness of Russian red lines. People are starting to doubt whether or not Russia will ever use nuclear weapons. And they appear to think that they can continue to push past any red line without any recourse. Sooner or later, this has to end. And if you would have told anybody a few years ago that Ukrainian forces would be invading Russia around a region which is known to have the uranium that they use to make nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon storage facilities, nuclear power plants, but doing so completely backstopped and funded by NATO, with numerous NATO mercenaries within their ranks, okay? NATO is protecting Ukraine's flank so that and it's true that there are Western troops already in Ukraine under the guise of mercenaries or volunteers, and that allows Ukraine to free up some of their forces to do these offensive maneuvers. Now, it's true that the Ukrainian lines are collapsing along the Donbass region where all the primary fighting is taking place. So the question is, what is the motive for this escapade? Well, it could have just been to shock Russian troops, to break up the momentum that the Russians have been seeing for the last few months. It could be to set the stage for some big event. And I wonder if that's what this is. Some people say that this is going to put them in a better position to negotiate, but the idea that with a few thousand troops, you are going to be able to hold a salient inside Russia, when the Germans couldn't do it with 1 million troops, is foolhardy. So what is the purpose of all of this? Is this just to take attention, divert attention away, to get the Russians playing a game of whack-a-mole? Is this so perfectly timed with the vaunted Iranian retaliatory strike, which many people expected to happen today? Because, of course, Iran did that heat shutdown. So they shut down all of their businesses and government businesses due to a heat warning, which almost never happens in Tehran. In fact, they're calling it an unprecedented event because it's never happened before. And the temperature isn't even that hot relative to what the record is, okay? So this is causing people to think that in combination with live fire exercises and a closure of portions of their airspace in the western part of the country, of course, the part that is pointing towards Israel, people suspected that they were about to do another launch of missiles and drones onto Israel. And in fact, that live fire exercise is still currently underway for the next hour or so. So is it a surprise that Ukraine decided to do this at this point in time? Well, Russia is flying plane load after plane load of military equipment, fast-tracking it to Iran as we speak. They wouldn't be doing that if there was no threat. They wouldn't be doing that if they suspected that Israel and the United States were going to back down and were not going to do a preemptive strike. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think that Iran wasn't going to act. Now, we can only put together the pieces of the puzzle that are presented to us. One thing is for sure, it appears as though this is not about a Hamas leader being assassinated. And I don't even think this is about the customs of having your sovereignty violated and assassinating a guest to a country. I don't even think it's about that. I think that there's something else that we're perhaps not being made aware of here, and it's something bigger. The Iranians know that a war with Israel and the United States is inevitable. So it's just a matter of who's going to throw the first punch. And now the climate is ripe for Iran to do just that. But Iran can see that the U.S. forces are starting to mobilize within the region. Not in an amount which is necessarily going to threaten the Iranian regime. In fact, it may just embolden and galvanize their population to support the war even more. But it appears as though war is inevitable, and it has very little to do with this assassination. It's just a confluence of events to have reached tipping points, and everybody knows that this is a conflict which needs to have a winner. It needs to be decided. And until it is, there's never going to be peace within the region. And you have the Russians who are doing their part in stoking and egging on the Iranians to take a shot, all right? Because it appears as though my phone is about to die. I just realized that my phone only has 5% of a charge left. Talk about being ill-prepared. As of the time of making this video, there is no attack yet by Iran. And we can expect that it's now daytime or approaching daytime in Iran and Israel, that we perhaps won't see one until at least tomorrow night. But you just never know. Because at this point in time, Iran does not appear to be telegraphing nor communicating in any way, shape, or form. All they did say today at the IOC meeting, which is a plenary session of 57 Muslim countries, they basically wanted to make a statement that those countries need to stay out of their way. And if they don't, there will, of course, be consequences. So let's see what happens in the next 24 hours, guys. I guess I gotta go because I was not prepared. But you should be. Stay prepped, stay ready, because the shit is getting ready to hit the fan.